Okay, for this screencast, I'm going to try to focus primarily on the rubric. So if you are comfortable with your grade over the last couple presentations, and you probably do need to watch this. So right here, I'll start first with the Ellie rule, going beyond the directions and so on. So what you want to do is, Ellie was a former student, and what she would do is she would mix up some of these items here. She would, in one presentation, do a rap, do a slideshow, and then do some sort of dance. And so she always would go above and beyond. She always wanted to set the standard, set the bar for the class, and ultimately wind up upsetting individuals. So if you're doing like the visual walkthrough, for the visual walkthrough, you just want to use some images and you want to try to tell the story. This works well for like a genocide or something like that. Maybe an event like 9/11. You can say, imagine you're at work one day on the 103rd floor of the North Tower or the South Tower, and you want to use images to kind of tell that story. And you kind of just walking the person watching this through. And at the end, you want to come away with some understanding of what it was like to be in that particular situation. So feel free to mix these up. The problem is, for the most part, students want to do a slideshow. When you're using a slideshow, I expect to have that kind of same feel. If you're using too much text, it's going to be a problem. You want to make this engaging, and the way you go about doing that in one of those presentation types is you want to use a bunch of slides. Like for this one here, this one has about 100+ slides. Now this one probably here, um, I could get this down to 15 minutes, but again, that's because I have to write things on the board. If I wanted to condense this to 3 minutes, I probably would have to cut this down. So you want to probably use, I don't know, the rubric does say to use 10 slides, but also notice that it says to accompany dialogue. So if you have 10 slides, and let's just say one slide is just there and you're not really saying anything about, you're not changing any of the visual, you're just speaking over a slide as I'm doing right now in this particular moment, that's probably going to be an issue. So this one right here, although it does say minimum of 10 slides, you also have to keep in mind that you have to accompany the dialogue. So sometimes a student will say, well, I had 10 slides, why did you take off points? Well, did those slides really accompany your dialogue? Are you looking at the 10 slides just to fill a quota? So you want to try to avoid that. So let's look at some other areas of this. An in-depth research understanding. So in history, there are certain keywords and phrases that, my understanding of the content, really, I could tell the difference when somebody did the research and somebody just kind of going through the motions. And what I mean by that is, there's just their use of words. Today I was watching a presentation that looked at the Atlantic Charter, and not only did the student do a great job of using documents, or the one document, but the Atlantic Charter, the 5 or 6 points. On one slide you saw the whole document, then the next slide they kind of zoomed in on like point 1 or point 2, and they made connections in history. They talked about Kwame Nkrumah, and then from there they made a connection to the Cold War. They also talked about how people in Africa were inspired by the Atlantic Charter. So they're using keywords and phrases that tell me that this individual really did the research. They understood the topic here. And so that's what that first section is trying to look at. As far as accuracy is concerned, it's just, did you make a mistake as far as content? You had a year wrong, or the name was incorrect or something like that. Your timing, you want to be at about 3 minutes, no more than that. If you find yourself at like 2:40 and you hit all of the points, that's fine. But if you're at 2 minutes and stopping, that's going to be an issue. I'm going to deduct. Also keep in mind that I do go in the middle. So if I'm here as opposed to here, this is a 4 and this would be an 8 deduction. Notes and memorization. This is a little difficult, in any sort of remote or video that some student completes. it's kind of hard to gauge the memorization. But in person, you want to be able to do your presentation without notes. I probably will allow that the first couple of presentations until you get used to the format. But at some point, the goal is by fourth marking period that you are moving away from notes. It's your presentation. In your presentation, come up with certain slides that trigger your memory, and you want to rehearse this. If you're stopping too much, that's going to be problematic. Also, in person, body language and confidence. I'll be looking at these things. For body language, you want to make use of movement. Some people, speak with their hands. Maybe that's something you want to think about. You want to show some enthusiasm. As it says up here, presenter seems bored. You have the topic of genocide or the topic of skyjacking. These are interesting topics, and if you are there just kind of, reading through it, that's going to be an issue. You know, Presentation just goes through the motions of answering the questions. It makes no attempt to go above and beyond such basic information, shows an in-depth research understanding by mentioning keywords, policies, phrases. Yeah, so you're probably at that point going to get a deduction in this particular area. Um, as far as being prepared, you're going from one slide to another. You have to kind of go back. You just kind of lost in the moment. That's what I'm looking for in that particular area. And anything can kind of trigger that deduction. If you just don't seem prepared, you're not prepared. There's not much I could say. And this screencast here, if I just kept, let me go to this slide here, let me go to this link here, and I'm looking something up, and you probably think, well, this individual didn't even prepare for this. He's just kind of winging it at that point. It does not use topic to students' advantage. Some topics are just unique. If you're talking about the Philadelphia experiment or Project Azorian, and you are not talking about the fact that the United States is trying to use some sort of crane mechanism to extract the submarine from the bottom of the ocean, or that they're trying to teleport a ship from point A to point B and people are being embedded in the ship hull, that's something there that really needs to be addressed. If you find yourself focusing on just like names and dates and you're not really analyzing your topic in depth, that's going to be an issue. But for this one, you want to use the topic to your advantage, especially if it's something unique. 9/11. If you're not making use of some of those visuals from that horrific day, you're not using that topic to your advantage. I mean, in some cases, the visuals speak for themselves. So let those visuals do that. For organization, presentation is confusing. Information is poorly organized. So let's take example that I used before about the Atlantic Charter. You have, 5 points in the Atlantic Charter. I said that the students started off with the document and then they zoomed in on like point 3 and then they talked about that. Well, what if that same student started with like 4 and then said, in point 4 of the Atlantic Charter, it's this, gave us some visuals. And then they kind of went back to like 5. And then they went to the whole document and then they said, oh, by the way, the Atlantic Charters, as I would say, was poor organization. Why not just start precisely the way that the student did? They gave us the entire document, gave us a brief summary, and then they used only those points that kind of supported the direction that they wanted to go with their presentation. So that right there shows a organization. If you find yourself going back and it just things are out of sequence, you have a timeline that's off, all these things are going to probably get you a deduction in this particular area. Presentation lacks a clear central focus. Feel free to start off with a theme. Say the theme for my presentation on Project Azorian is technological advancements during the Cold War and the measures that either side would go through to, claim victory. That now is your theme. Then you use your visuals 1, 2, 3, all the way up to like 20 to kind of make that point. That's pretty much it. Keep in mind, I also will give up some positive points. In some cases, a student can do a slideshow and just, their body language is there. They're enthused about the topic. You can score 100 plus on a slideshow presentation. So if you're trying to figure out a way to do that, make sure you're taking a look at some of the other samples. How to make a PowerPoint or a slideshow using. We want to take a look at this slideshow that's on the site. Feel free, if you're making any sort of model or drawing, you just don't want one slide with this drawing. With this particular model here, maybe now your next slide, it's a picture of just this, a zoomed in picture. Now you're going on to this, then you're zooming in this area, and you're zooming in this area. Same thing if you're doing a picture. Here's your picture. I try to recreate this. Here's a stupid horse. Look at that horse right there. What else do we have? We got the fire, the offensive TP. We got the man right here. So maybe in the next one you focus on the man, and then you're with the stupid horse. And now you're starting to make multiple slides of your one model, as opposed to just having this one image of the model. Don't forget, if you're in remote, you want to make sure that you have, so I can look at your body language and see some sort of memorization, you want to actually be in the video. So that's kind of where we're going for the third and fourth market period.